Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Today, I am feeling like as soon as I woke up today, I knew that I would be doing a Facebook Live on this. I am feeling very called to speak about a soul's journey through the different dimensions and how that looks. So I just want to preface and say wherever you are in your journey is perfect. Your soul has made agreements to be at a certain place at a certain point in time. And so there's no actually looking at it as someone's farther ahead of you or someone's behind you. Let's just dissolve all of those kind of labels and those ideas and way of looking at it, and rather just gain an understanding of the dimensional shift that's taking place today and how that's showing up in your life as well as your loved ones' lives and those in the spiritual community's lives. As you know, I've been talking a lot about the shift that's taking place in the spiritual community right now. So I felt that having some teachings about the actual bandwidth of frequencies that's taking place and the shift that's taking place is really going to be supportive to many of you right now. So I have my whiteboard today. This is how we're going to do it. Very exciting. Yeah, very, very exciting. So I already kind of got it started just to keep me on track. I'm going to probably go through this quite slow because my heart is racing like a mofo today. My body is adjusting to a huge influx of light and energy that's coming through, probably preparing me for this training. So I just have to do life slower when my heart is racing like this. So yeah, it's a good teaching for me too, to just slow down and be more in my body as I'm speaking these teachings through. Okay. So in the spiritual community, you hear a lot about 3D, 4D, 5D, and above. So the third dimension is the physical reality. Let me scooch that over. Scooch that over. So 3D is the physical reality. So this is where the majority of the collective is operating at. So this is like touch. This board is third dimensional. I can touch it. It's just, see, taste, smell, touch here, not even here, I don't know. But anyways, so third dimensional, I don't really have to explain that too much. That's just 3D reality. And so this is a very solid, dense bandwidth of frequency that the majority of people are operating at. And you probably were operating mostly or pretty much all in the third dimension before your soul awoke. Right? I don't really even like to use those terms awoke anymore, but just to keep it simple, we'll just explain it that way. So people that are operating in the 3D only, they are very earthbound, they aren't aware that they are a soul living a human experience, or maybe they are aware, but they're not aware of the actual energetics of things. So it's very cut and dry. This is, just 3D reality. So when a soul begins to wake up and begins to realize that beyond the physical, there's this whole ocean of energy that we can play with and create with, that is like this ocean of divine intelligence, source, spirit, God, that we can co-create with, that we can download ideas and inspiration from, that we can basically change our environment and our reality and our experience by making shifts within us, and then begin to see that reflected out around us. So this is us, our soul, beginning to transition into the fourth dimensional bandwidth of frequency. Okay, so this is where we're shifting into the energy. So our human body is the third dimension. It's the physical body. This is our body. Let's put a little smiley face on that. And then our soul is awakening. And we're awakening to everything as energy. Okay, so there's all of these dimensions. We have 4D, we have 5D and beyond. We got 60, 70, 80, 90, 10D, 11D, 12D and beyond. That's all energy. Okay, and physical reality is energy as well. It's just very, very dense energy that's so dense that you can touch it. So this is all light, it's all energy. Now, the purest frequency is God, is source, is spirit, divine, whatever word works for you, you can use that. And that illuminates through all of the dimensions. It's in everything. Okay? So when we're operating in the fourth dimensional bandwidth of frequency, this is where most of the spiritual community is at. There's a lot of really fun things that happens in the fourth dimension. This is where we're in moon circles and we're, recognizing that we have a shadow and an ego. And so we're working on doing like deep healing. We're working on ancestral stuff. We're just doing like all of our shadow work. A lot of fun stuff happens in here. We learn how to channel. We realize that we're really powerful manifestors. And so we're working on like unpacking our density, our fears and our programs and our ideas that we're not powerful so that we can become even more powerful manifestors, so that manifestation becomes more instant. So we're unpacking our trauma. We're doing all that. We're just like in this deep, deep realm of cleaning up the shadow and expanding into new states of light, like bringing in more light into our bodies, into our energetic fields, and blasting away those denser stuff, the heavier stuff, the shadow stuff, so that we are feeling awesome, so that, we're holding light, our psychic abilities are coming online. It's very exciting. It's very fun. We're connecting with other spiritual-minded people. There's a lot going on in this realm. There's also, it's not also just the spiritual community. I almost just said conspiritual. There's also so in amongst, we got moon circles, we got goddess stuff, I'm going to write that in. Goddess stuff, moon circles. It's all very exciting. Having a lot of fun, and also, as we know, shadow work isn't always fun. So we're moving through a lot here. A lot of work is done here. There's also a lot of conspiracy stuff happening in the fourth dimensional realm. So just remember that this is just a bandwidth of frequency. It's a bandwidth of vibrations where we're operating in this fourth dimensional realm. So I'm also going to write this, conspiracy stuff. And so this is kind of expanding into the higher levels of 4D and like the lower levels of 5D, of fifth dimension, okay? So what can actually happen when we're in this fourth dimensional space with the rest of the spiritual community? A lot of souls that awoke to like the energetics. A lot of us had gone through huge stressors or huge traumas to shake our soul awake from our sleepy slumber, where we forgot that we are divinity, that we forgot that we are expressions of God, that we forgot that we have a divine spark within us. So a lot of spiritual people were once kind of seen as the black sheep in their family, or just didn't quite fit in the society. And that's because we came as starseeds. We came with looking through a different lens than the rest of the world. And ultimately, we came to assist in this shift that we're in now. So we were holding, our souls were holding a huge amount of light. We signed up to come here to help support humanity in their awakening, in their ascension, in this shift of consciousness. But what can happen is we end up really separating ourselves and being in this fourth dimensional bubble, this spiritual community bubble, that we end up feeling even more separate from our friends that aren't on spiritual journeys. We feel even more separate from our family, from our community. And we end up having to spend a lot of time to feel good. And what I mean by that is we are deep in using a bunch of different tools in our morning to be able to get to a place where we're vibrating really high and feeling super awesome so that we can take on our day. And so, I mean, we're doing our breath work, we're doing our mantras, we're doing our yoga, we're doing our meditation, we're doing all of it. It's a very busy, very, very busy dimension to be in. And it serves a purpose, because what's happening is what we're doing is we are cleaning up the distortion in humanity and the distortion in the planet. But so like we're basically doing the shadow work. We're like, one of my teachers Sandra Walters had said that it's like we are the snowplows, and we are cleaning up the big amount of snowstorms so that the rest of the collective, when they awaken or become more aware, they don't have to work through all of this stuff to get up into this 5th dimensional bandwidth of frequency. They just get to like shoot on right up into it when their soul is ready to make that transition over. So we're like the cleanup crew. We basically clean the F out of this 4th dimensional space. Now, we have to be very careful and mindful and use discernment in this space, because there is a lot of programs in the 4th dimensional realms that aren't necessarily there to support us. Even though everything supports us in a way in our soul's evolution, there's always lessons to be learned. But there are some like really, really wonky programmings that come through in this 4th dimensional realm. So what happens when we're deep in our, deep on our ascension journey, deep on doing our own inner work? Our vibration is starting to go up and up and up and up. And we end up beginning to shift out of the 4th dimension and beginning to move into the 5th dimension and into a new bandwidth of frequency. And some of this stuff is operating on the lower levels of 5D. It's not like cut and dry where it's like, yeah, this is obviously 4D and that's obviously lower level 5D. This is just my perspective and understanding of it. So as we begin to shift out of a lot of this stuff, what ends up happening, number one, is we begin to stabilize in the 5th dimension and higher up realms. What ends up happening is everything starts to simplify, and we realize we don't have to use all of these tools that we were once using to feel awesome. We just like wake up in the morning feeling peaceful, lit up, inspired, feeling fully connected to God or spirit, source, however you want to say it. And we're just ready to conquer our day. We don't need to lean on all of these tools. So when we actually get to this place and anchor ourselves into that 5D and above realm, it's like a huge simplification, a huge breath of relief, because we're no longer spending an hour, maybe 2-3 hours trying to stabilize our frequency to feel awesome. We just feel awesome. Now, what it ends up happening, the higher up into the 5th dimension, as we're, beginning to let go some of these tools that we once really clung onto and resonated with, we start to look at this realm differently. We start to look at this space with a different set of lens. I guess I'm having a hard time like fitting both of us in here. And we end up realizing that there's a lot of this stuff that we once really heavily identified with that just does not feel resonant at all anymore. It actually feels repulsive in our body. It's icky. We feel just ick. So in that process, it is confusing as F, because we are basically shifting. We're crossing that last few steps to get into the 5th dimension and above. Like, we don't just stop at 5D. We can shoot up into all these other dimensions and play with all these different realms. But yeah, a lot of this ends up feeling just ick. And it can be very, very confusing and a huge sense of identity loss. So this is where I am supporting people right now, is that transition between here and here. Because without support, you can really spiral and get lost in the emotion and like the identity loss and the identity crisis that takes place. So a lot of the spiritual community right now are making that transition across. And it's a much pure energy, a much higher vibration up here, where we realize that it's all just God. That God is in all of it, that we no longer look at duality. We're no longer looking through a lens of separation. So what happens is, where there has been any sort of crack in your consciousness or illusion in your consciousness that you are separate, that begins to dissolve out really rapidly. And that's where you begin to realize that you're finally fully unpacking your God trauma. And you're fully unifying with God. Even though you were always unified with God or source, however you want to say it, deeply embedded in our unconscious from religious upbringing, from all sorts of different programs that were designed to keep us separate from ourselves, to keep us separate from each other, to keep us separate from our truth, that all begins to dissolve. And so with that, all of this begins to dissolve too. So what also ends up happening as this dissolving of duality is taking place is we no longer feel separate from our family and from our friends that aren't on a similar spiritual journey. So what happens when we're hanging out really heavily in this fourth dimensional playground is we can tend to isolate ourselves from people that aren't spiritual, and we have a direct distinguishment between conscious and unconscious people, awake and unawoke people. And there can be like almost this sense of, I want to say judgment, but I don't think that's quite the right word. Maybe spiritual entitlement, like you're looking through a lens that's a lot clearer than the rest of the world or whatever, right? So that all ends up beginning to dissolve as you go into the fifth dimension, that you're a lot more of this world then. You would think that you wouldn't be more of this world when you get into these higher bandwidths, but you actually are, because all the separation is dissolving and you actually become much more connected to your third dimensional body, because this is the vessel that you are having this human experience with. You no longer feel like you have to isolate yourself from big groups of people, from friends and family that are operating on different vibrational frequencies than you, because you are completely stable up here. You no longer need to be like protecting yourself from all these things and trying to protect your vibration and doing all these spiritual Olympics to stay at a feeling great place. It's much simpler. You dissolve out all of these tools. You no longer need all of that. And you pretty much just hang out with God. Or you just hang out with source. It just simplifies it. And that's not to say that you're not going to go back and like play around with some of these things, you know, the goddess stuff, the starseed stuff, playing around with the moon stuff. But what tends to happen is we have to drop all of that for a period of time so that we can fully anchor into God and source and into these higher dimensions. And so we just like bask in that light, and all of this stuff feels icky until we fully ground and plug into that. And then from there, some people will, you know, start to bring in the starseed stuff again, or start to bring in the goddess stuff again, the goddess teachings, etc. So source or God is not masculine or feminine. It's both. It's unified. And so the masculine and the feminine teachings that we learned and heavily navigated in the fourth dimensional realm were so powerful in us. I'm pretty sure this is Colette, by the way that you're chatting. Hi, Colette. I'm so glad that this is serving. Oh yeah, you said you have to start work now. So have a great day. We'll chat soon. Where was I? Yeah, okay, so in the fourth dimensional realm, we learned about the masculine and feminine very heavily, and that was a very, very important part in my journey, because I was able to go into each, the feminine and the masculine individually, to heal my relationship with both, so that at some point in time, I could feel like the divine masculine was like a safety ground for me to get to the point to unpack my God trauma enough to fully plug back into God. Even though I was always plugged into God, there was like this unconscious separation. I was raised Mennonite, it's a very, very strict religion. And so I had a lot of repulsion towards religion by the way that I was brought up. And yeah, just a lot of God trauma that, you know, we've carried on from our past lives, you know, from witch trial days, priestess wound, and so forth, that it's just deeply embedded in us. And once that dissolves out, you are met with such an incredible sense of safety, unconditional love, and you realize that you don't need anything else other than just that connection to spirit. And it's a completely different way of seeing the world, of being of this world, of operating. And yeah. And in that place, like, you really begin to feel your true soul self, which all of this was very much serving a purpose to get you here, but we can pick up a lot of distorted teachings in this place that muddle our soul's light. So when we get up to this 5th dimension and above higher frequency bandwidth and operating in all these other higher dimensions, your soul's light, it becomes like a diamond light that's radiating out from you. That you don't need all of these fancy light shows and stuff that, like I said, served a purpose. It served a huge, huge purpose. But you don't need any of that once you get up here. And it can be very, very confusing when you're going through that transition, because you're going through a huge, huge refinement process of your belief systems, and your body is like, WTF, what's going on? Your ego mind is freaking out. You really need to have the support to feel safe as you let yourself unravel and let go of all this stuff that you picked up along the way that isn't in resonance with your soul. So, long story short, the collective consciousness that is shifting on the planet, more people in the collective are becoming aware of the energetic field. And so there's like a bridge that's taking place between like Western and Eastern philosophies, Western and Eastern medicine. People are realizing like, okay, I do need to go see acupuncture rather than just go see my general practitioner. People are realizing that when they shift their mindset to being more positive, they do attract more positive experiences. But the thing is that as the 3rd dimensional, we're still always going to have, we're going to have physical bodies until we no longer need them. I don't know at what point in time we will just be light bodies. I have no idea. But what happens in this realm is we've done a really good job of cleaning things up, doing our shadow work, but we also, for some of us, it's like we're trying to escape the 3rd dimension. It's like we're trying to escape this world, and we just want to hang out in these higher realms. And that's just because we've accumulated a lot of trauma along the way. However, the collective is going through a huge shift right now. The collective is becoming aware of all of this, even though they're not going to be using terms like this. It's a lot simpler, a lot more bare bones. They are actually bypassing this 4th dimensional realm, and they're just shifting into the 5th dimension and above. And that's because us 4th dimensional warriors cleaned the F out of it, so they just get, their vibration gets to quickly shift through and up into here. And so they're finding their own connection to spirit, their own connection to the earth, they're finding their own connection to soul, they're beginning to, because the physical world, like with what we've experienced this past year, hasn't been super supportive of jobs that do not light your soul on fire, right? Because a lot of people have lost their jobs. And so now it's like an opportunity to really like dismantle everything and start fresh and rebuild your life from what burns your soul, what lights your soul on fire, right? And so they're not going to be sitting in, silent retreats and breath work they're not going to be doing any of that. They'll be doing breath work maybe, but what I'm trying to say is they're not going to be doing like past life regressions and all of the awesome fun spiritual Olympic stuff that we've been doing. It's just going to be super simple. And so the spiritual community is now shifting up into there so that we can support and help 3rd dimension, like the collective, across that bridge to be operating more from a place of energy, from understanding from a place of our heart, being connected with our hearts, being connected with each other, coming into union. And so by us spiritual people in the community becoming more relatable, because we're a lot more relatable up here, than we are in here. We've got all sorts of words and vocabulary that means stuff to us because we've been in the spiritual Olympics, but to the rest of the world, it doesn't mean anything. And they're like, it's like she's talking a totally different language. And I get it because I love all that language too. It speaks to like my nerd brain. I love it. However, I recognize that it's not serving. It's not serving at all. So the people in the collective are needing us to really simplify and have all hands on deck to support them in the shifts that they're making. And just know that they're not going to want to probably do a lot of this type of stuff. So yeah, I think that explains it all. I'm just thinking if there's anything else that wants to come through on that before I talk about Soul Series. Yeah, I think I covered everything that I wanted to talk about. So as many of you guys know, I am currently enrolling for Soul Series. It's a 6-week group immersion that is holding you in safety as you transition across this bridge. Because without that support, like I said, it's scary as F. And it's freaky when everything that you once totally resonated with feels not good at all anymore. And Soul Series, and I am going to guide you across that bridge because you're basically unifying with God. You're dissolving out your deep unconscious illusions of separation. And you're becoming more of your soul self. You're basically returning home to yourself after heavily navigating this world. And it's gonna support you and help you feel safe so that you can fully just allow it all that's not in alignment with your soul to dissolve out. And when you get through on the other side, you are going to know what your own energetic signature feels like. You're going to know what your own soul signature feels like. And you're going to be in like this beautiful co-creational relationship with God, with Source, with Spirit, that everything that you do, everything that you create, God is working through you. Source is expressing itself through you. And you're not diluting. Ooh, I have texts coming in. Okay, I'm back. And you're not diluting your light by all the stuff that you picked up along here that can sound like static if you're like picking up too much of it and not integrating it. So this is also wanting to come through before I talk a little bit more about Soul Series. There's a lot of people awakening up right now from this dimension and heading straight into 4th dimension. And that's what I'm kind of calling like baby light workers, because they're like super, super excited and jazzed up about everything that they're learning. They're like sponges. They're taking a lot in. But for some of them, not all, for some of them, they're not grounded in and integrated in their work yet. They haven't done their own inner work enough yet to be properly leading someone through their own transformation. And so this is where you're seeing a lot of people operating from out of integrity and being inauthentic, because it's like this has become a trend. Okay, so like we can buy crystals from HomeSense. Moldavite is trending on TikTok. And there's people walking into crystal shops like wanting to go get Moldavite, not knowing that it's going to completely bring up everything in your life that needs to be dissolved away. And it's like this huge activation. And if you're not ready for it, it can like fuck you up. So we just need to be mindful. We need to be mindful we just need to be mindful. Let's just cut it dry in there. We just need to be mindful. So the spiritual community that have already we're beginning to shift into this 5D and higher realm, they're going to be helping these baby light workers. And the baby light workers are going to be moving through the 4th dimension much faster than we did, because we already moved through it. We've already cleared a lot of it up. So they're fast tracking. They're fast tracking through, but we're helping them as well. So it's like this, we're all helping each other. We're all helping each other. So yeah, Soul Series is basically for those that are feeling fatigued by all of this and their soul is asking for this and higher. And so Soul Series and I am going to hold you in that. So we start the second week of April. I'm going to drop in the comments the website for you to check out. If you feel me in this, if you really feel me in that like a lot of this isn't resonating anymore, check out Soul Series. I am so unbelievably excited for it. This is beyond anything that I have created or co-created before in the past. It's a huge shift in my own work. And the group of ladies that we already have in it are, they're incredible diamond souls that are going to uncover so much more of their diamond essence by going through this shift. It's going to be a huge simplification and like a true coming home to themselves after being in the spiritual Olympics for years and years and years. And like I said, once you're anchored in that, you don't need all them spiritual Olympics. And that's such a breath of fresh air. It's such a breath of fresh air to no longer need all of these tools to feel awesome and sparkly and radiant and aligned and connected. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. You know, I'm going to be loading this up onto my YouTube and putting it on my Facebook and Instagram. So share this with people. Get this message out. This really explains where we're at right now as a collective and within the spiritual community. And just know that your soul is exactly where you need to be. Your soul has decided you're at the exact right time that you're supposed to be, or exact right place that you're supposed to be. And if this doesn't resonate, totally okay. Totally okay. This is just my own perspective, my own understanding, and my own experience. So Soul Series, we start, I need to turn this a little bit. We start April 14th, the week of April 14th. Is it April 14th? We start the week of April 12th. All right? So I love you. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. There's a lot of energy that's coming down onto the planet right now with it being Easter weekend. So take care of yourselves, hydrate, be with family, be with loved ones, get your feet on the earth, and check out Soul Series. If you can feel me in this, Soul Series is probably that next shift that your soul is asking for. So take a look. Take care. Bye.